I found out. My boyfriend was cheating with my best friend. It felt like a scene from a terrible movie, the kind of plot twist you think only happens on screen, not in real life. The two people I trusted most, the two pillars of my world, were secretly connected in a way that betrayed everything I believed about loyalty and love. Finding out the truth didn't just break my heart. It shattered my entire reality, leaving me reeling from a double betrayal I never saw coming. My name is Sarah, and until that moment, my life felt solid. I was in a committed relationship with Mark. We had been together for about 2 years, navigating the comfortable phase where you know each other's quirks, share future plans, and feel like a genuine team. Mark was kind, funny, supportive, and I genuinely believed we had a strong, trusting relationship. We talked about moving in together, maybe even getting engaged down the line. He was my partner, my confidant, the person I shared everything with. And then there was Jessica, my best friend. We'd been inseparable since high school. Over 15 years of shared secrets, inside jokes, triumphs, and heartbreaks. She was the first person I called with good news, the one who knew me better than anyone else, the person I could always count on. Our bond felt unbreakable. She was family. Mark and Jessica knew each other through me, of course. They got along well, which always made me happy. They could chat easily, tease each other, and seemed to have a comfortable, platonic friendship. They'd hang out when Jessica came over to my place, join us for group dinners with other friends, or sometimes chat briefly on the phone if one of them called me while the other was around. I never once suspected anything. Why would I? One was the man I loved, the other was the woman who was like my sister. The idea of them together, behind my back, was unfathomable. Leading up to the discovery, life felt normal, good even. I was happy in my relationship with Mark, planning a weekend trip with Jessica, just living my everyday life, completely oblivious. There were no major fights with Mark, no falling out with Jessica, nothing to suggest the ground was about to give way beneath my feet. I remember that day clearly. It started out like any other ordinary day. But it was the day I would stumble upon a truth so devastating, so fundamentally altering, that it would forever change the way I looked at the two people I thought I knew best. The moment of discovery was unexpected, brutal, and it would reveal a secret that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The day I found out was sunny, completely unremarkable. I was at Mark's apartment, spending a lazy Saturday afternoon. He had gone out for a bit to run an errand, something about picking up dry cleaning, utterly mundane. I was tidying up, the living room, fluffing cushions, putting away some stray magazines. Everything felt normal, comfortable, safe. Mark's laptop was on the coffee table, open. I wasn't snooping, honestly. My own phone battery was low, and I just needed to quickly look something up online. I reached for his laptop, my mind on the recipe I wanted to find for dinner. As the screen came fully on, I saw it. A messaging application was open in the corner of the screen. The name at the top of the active chat window made my blood run cold. Jessica, my best friend, my sister. My heart gave a strange, painful lurch. Why would she be messaging Mark on his workish chat app? Maybe coordinating a surprise for me. My rational brain, desperately trying to cling to normalcy, searched for innocent explanations. But then I saw the last few lines of their conversation, displayed in the window preview. Jessica, last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. Mark, me neither. So glad we had that time alone. Wish we could tell her. Jessica, soon. We'll figure it out. Be careful. Wish we could tell her. Her meant me. Last night was incredible. Time alone? My hands started to shake so violently I almost dropped the laptop. The recipe, the dry cleaning, the sunny afternoon, everything vanished. I clicked the window open, my breath catching in my throat. The messages scrolled back, revealing a horrifying timeline. Conversations filled with intimate language, pet names I thought were ours, detailed plans to meet up when I was supposedly busy or out of town, references to shared moments, inside jokes, and expressions of affection that made my stomach churn. They talked about me too, in casual, dismissive ways that felt like a second betrayal with every word I read. Sarah was complaining about work again, LOL. Just finished dinner with Sarah. Can't wait to see you later. It was a secret life, woven into the fabric of my own, happening right under my nose. My husband, my best friend. The realization hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was an ongoing, secret relationship. Weeks, months. The messages went back for a long time. They had been lying to me, together, for God knows how long. Every time they were together, every time they looked me in the eye, every time they hugged me, it was all a lie. The room started to spin. I felt nauseous, dizzy, like I might faint. I clutched the laptop, my knuckles white, staring at the damning words on the screen. The pain was unlike anything I had ever experienced. A double heartbreak, a complete demolition of my trust in the two people closest to me. My husband, my best friend. How could they? How dare they? The sheer magnitude of their deception, the depth of their betrayal, was unfathomable. My world, the one I had felt so secure in just moments ago, had just exploded. The laptop felt heavy in my trembling hands. The words on the screen blurred through the sudden hot tears that flooded my eyes. My best friend, my boyfriend, betraying me. The shock was so profound, it was physically painful. My chest felt tight, my lungs burning, unable to draw a proper breath. It wasn't just a relationship ending. It was the foundation of my life crumbling beneath me. Despite the shock, a small, clear voice in my head cut through the panic. Proof. I needed proof. With shaking fingers, I pulled out my phone. I opened the camera and started taking pictures of the screen, capturing the most damning parts of their conversation. Pet names, future plans without me, cruel little comments about my life. Each click of the camera felt like a hammer blow to my heart, documenting the reality of their secret life. I closed the laptop, trying to leave it as I had found it, though. My hands were shaking too hard to be completely sure. I needed to get out of there. I needed to get away from the apartment that now felt tainted by their lies. Grabbing my purse, I practically ran out, fumbling with the lock, desperate to escape. Walking. Down the street, the sunlight felt too bright, the sounds of the city too loud. Everything seemed normal, and the contrast with the devastation inside me was jarring, almost sickening. How could the world just keep going when mine had just stopped? My mind raced, trying to figure out who I could possibly talk to. Not Mark, obviously. Not Jessica. The two people I would normally lean on during a crisis were the source of this one. My parents? Maybe. But I felt a need to talk to someone who understood the dynamics of my relationships with Mark and Jessica. Emily. My friend Emily knew them both, knew how close Jessica and I were, knew about my relationship with Mark. She was the only one I could think of who would understand the full depth of the betrayal. I drove straight to her apartment, barely remembering the drive. When she opened the door, the look on my face must have told her everything she needed to know before I even spoke. "Sarah? What happened?" she asked immediately, pulling me inside. I just collapsed into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. The dam had broken. Between gasps and tears, I managed to blurt out the bare facts: Mark, Jessica, together. Emily led me to her couch, holding my hand, rubbing my back. "Oh my God, Sarah. Are you serious? Jessica? And Mark?" She sounded shocked, horrified. Once I could speak more clearly, I showed her the pictures on my phone. She scrolled through them, her eyes widening with each message. I can't believe this, she kept repeating. Jessica? Your best friend? How could she? How could he? We talked for hours. We went over the messages, trying to piece together the timeline, the extent of the deception. The betrayal by Mark was devastating, the end of a relationship I valued. But Jessica's betrayal felt like a violation of a sacred bond, a sisterhood. It was a pain so sharp, so personal. It felt almost unbearable. How could she look me in the eye, share my confidences, all while sleeping with the man I loved? Emily's anger on my behalf was a comfort. Her disbelief mirrored my own. She didn't try to find excuses for them. She just validated my pain and outrage. By the end of the night, the initial shock had worn off, leaving behind a raw, throbbing ache in my chest. I was heartbroken, humiliated, and filled with a cold, growing anger. I had the proof. I had told someone. Now came the most difficult part, facing them. After the initial wave of devastation subsided, the anger began to take root. How long had this been going on? How many times had they lied to my face, shared intimate moments behind my back, while I went on believing I had a solid relationship and a best friend I could trust with my life? The injustice of it fueled a cold, hard determination. They weren't going to get away with it. They needed to face me, together, and acknowledge the depth of their betrayal. I decided to confront them both at my apartment. It was my space, my home, the place they had both frequented, often at the same time, while living this lie. It felt like the right place to expose their deceit. I knew if I tried to talk to them separately, they might coordinate their stories, lie their way out, or gaslight me. Seeing their reactions to each other when caught felt crucial. Setting it up required acting. I sent a casual text to Jessica. Hey, haven't properly hung out the three of us in a bit. Want to come over Saturday for pizza and movies? Mark's free. I sent a similar text to Mark. Both agreed readily. Their unsuspecting responses a chilling contrast to the turmoil inside me. It felt like setting a trap, a necessary one. The day they were scheduled to come over, I was a bundle of nerves and resolve. My hands trembled as I tidied up, the mundane task feeling absurd given the confrontation that was about to unfold. I mentally rehearsed what I would say, how I would say it. Calmly, I decided. I wouldn't scream or cry immediately. I would present the evidence and watch them break. They arrived together, laughing about something as they walked up my path. Seeing them side by side, acting like the comfortable duo I was used to seeing, knowing what I knew, made my stomach clench. Jessica hugged me hello, and I forced myself to hug her back, the physical contact feeling repulsive. Mark leaned in for a kiss, and I managed to turn my head slightly so he just kissed my cheek. He gave me a brief, questioning look, but I just smiled tightly. Hey guys, come on in, I said, stepping aside. They settled onto the couch, comfortable, and familiar in my space. We made small talk, about their weeks, about the weather, about the pizza I was about to order. Every word felt like a performance. I watched them, searching for any hidden signals, any shared glances, but they were either incredibly good actors or completely unaware that I knew. As they chatted easily, the contrast between their casual demeanor and the bombshell I was holding became unbearable. I couldn't drag it out. I sat down opposite them, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. So, I began, cutting into the conversation. My voice was steady, perhaps a little too quiet. There's something we need to talk about. Something important. They both looked at me, their expressions shifting from relaxed to slightly questioning. Okay. What is it? Mark asked, a hint of concern in his voice. I didn't respond with words. I slowly reached for my phone, which was lying on the coffee table. My hands were shaking again, but I kept my gaze fixed on their faces. I unlocked the screen and opened the photos I had taken. The photos of Mark's messaging app, the messages between him and Jessica. I slid the phone across the coffee table towards them. The screen faced them, displaying the damning conversation for them to see. Their eyes fixed on the screen. The color drained from both their faces simultaneously. Jessica gasped, a sharp, choked sound. Mark froze, his jaw going slack. They looked at the phone. Then slowly, with dawning horror, they looked at each other. Sarah. "What is this?" Mark stammered, though he knew exactly what it was. "That," I said, my voice rising, the carefully constructed calm beginning to crack, "is proof. Proof that you two, my boyfriend and my best friend, have been sleeping together. Proof that you've been lying to me for God knows how long." I looked directly at Jessica, the pain in my voice raw. "Proof that you, Jessica, my sister, have been sleeping with the man I love." Silence. A thick, suffocating silence filled the room, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing and Jessica's quiet, desperate whimper. Their eyes were wide with panic and disbelief that they'd been caught. The facade had shattered, and the confrontation had officially begun. The silence after my accusations stretched, thick with their shock and the weight of the exposed truth. They stared at my phone screen, then at each other, their faces a canvas of panic and guilt. The comfortable, familiar atmosphere of moments. Ego was completely gone, replaced by a tense, hostile energy. Jessica was the first to find her voice, though it was shaky and high-pitched. "Sarah, I can explain. It's not what you think." "Not what I think?" I repeated, my voice dangerously low. "I think I just saw messages between you and Mark talking about being incredible together, wishing you could tell her, meaning me, and planning secret meetups." "What else is there to think, Jessica?" Mark finally spoke, his voice tight. It happened, Sarah. It wasn't planned." "It happened?" My anger flared. "For how long has it just happened, Mark? These messages go back weeks, months." I gestured towards the phone. "Planning trips? Can't stop thinking about you? That's not a mistake, that's a choice. Multiple choices made repeatedly behind my back." Jessica started to cry, silent tears streaming down her face. "We didn't mean to hurt you, Sarah. We never wanted this to happen." "Oh, you didn't mean to." I turned my full fury on her. "My best friend, the person I told everything. You were sleeping with my boyfriend and you didn't mean to hurt me? Every time you came over here, every time we talked about my relationship with Mark, you were lying." "To me, that's not just hurtful, Jessica, that's a complete betrayal. How could you do this to me?" "It just got complicated," Mark interjected, trying to sound reasonable, which only infuriated me more. "Things between us we were going through a rough patch." "A rough patch?" I almost laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "So your solution to a rough patch in our relationship was to sleep with my best friend. And your solution, Jessica, was to jump into bed with the man your best friend loves." They started talking over each other, a jumble of panicked excuses and partial confessions. "It only happened a few times," Mark said, while Jessica simultaneously blurted, "We tried to stop." "A few times?" I knew from the messages it was more than a few times. "You tried to stop? These messages show you planning when to see each other." "Next! Don't lie to me anymore! Just tell me the truth. How long?" Under pressure, the truth started to trickle out, forced and painful. It had started subtly, late-night texts that turned intimate, then escalated. It had been going on for about 3 months. 3 months of lies, of secrets, of my two closest people deceiving me together. Every detail they reluctantly revealed was another twist of the knife. "Why her, Mark?" I asked, the question aching in my chest. Why my best friend? Why him, Jessica? I asked, looking at the woman who was supposed to be my sister. Out of everyone in the world, why him? Their explanations were weak, pathetic. Loneliness, confusion. It just happened. Excuses that couldn't possibly justify the depth of their betrayal. The air in the room was thick with tension, accusations, and the raw, ugly truth of their deceit laid bare between us. The moment the door clicked shut, the silence in my apartment was absolute, broken only by my own ragged breaths. The adrenaline that had fueled me through the confrontation drained away, leaving me physically trembling and utterly exhausted. I stayed on the floor where I had sunk, the cold wood seeping into my clothes, unable to move. The air felt thick, heavy with the echoes of shouting, accusations, and tearful, inadequate apologies. They were gone. The two people who had occupied the largest spaces in my life, the anchors I relied on, were gone. Not through distance or circumstance, but through a devastating self-inflicted wound of betrayal. The silence wasn't just quiet. It was a gaping void left by their absence, a stark reminder of the life I thought I had, and the relationships that had been built on lies. The pain of Mark's betrayal was immense, the loss of my partner, the future we had planned. But Jessica's betrayal, that was a different kind of agony. It was the violation of a sacred bond, the shattering of sisterhood. It felt like losing a limb, a part of myself. The fact that they had done this together, that they had shared this secret life while smiling in my face, made the wound twice as deep, twice as complex. After some time, I don't know how long, I managed to pull myself up. The apartment felt foreign, haunted by the recent confrontation and the countless memories of both of them within these walls. Every object seemed tainted. The couch they sat on, the kitchen where we had shared meals, the pictures on the wall that now felt like relics of a lie. I needed to talk to Emily again. She knew the full scope of it now, understood the double blow. Calling her, my voice still thick with tears and exhaustion, felt like reaching for a lifeline in a stormy sea. She came over immediately, her presence a quiet comfort in the oppressive silence of my apartment. Recounting the confrontation, their initial denial, the trickle of truth, their pathetic excuses, me kicking them out, brought back waves of raw emotion. I cried, I raged, I questioned everything. Why 3 months? Why my best friend? Why do it in such a cowardly, deceitful way? There were no good answers, of course, only the painful reality of their choices. We talked about the impossible task of moving forward. How do you rebuild when the two most important pillars of your life have been simultaneously knocked down? How do you trust again? The questions felt overwhelming, the future a terrifying unknown. The apartment, filled with ghosts of laughter and shared moments, felt suffocating. I couldn't imagine sleeping in the bed I had shared with Mark, knowing what he had done. I couldn't look at the gifts Jessica had given me without feeling sick. The emotional roller coaster of the days that followed was relentless. Moments of fierce anger would give way to crushing sadness. Disbelief would morph into sharp jabs of pain. I felt physically heavy, drained, like all my energy had been spent in that final confrontation. The thought of practical things, sorting through their belongings, dealing with shared accounts, facing the world, felt impossible. I was stuck in the wreckage, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I had lost and the betrayal I had endured. But amidst the pain and exhaustion, a tiny flickering ember remained, a voice quiet but persistent that whispered, "You survived the discovery. You survived the confrontation. You got them out. You are still here." The path ahead was daunting, filled with uncertainty, and the long process of healing from a double heartbreak. But somewhere in the depths of my devastation, the instinct to survive, to eventually rebuild, held on, a faint promise in the suffocating silence. The air in my apartment was thick with tension and the raw, ugly truth. Their flimsy excuses about how it just happened and how they tried to stop were like gasoline on my fire. My anger, fueled by their inadequate explanations and the 3 months of lies, boiled over. "You tried to stop," I repeated, my voice rising to a shout. "While you were planning secret trips? While you were messaging each other about last night? When you were probably with me the day before? That's not trying to stop. That's building a whole other relationship based on deceiving me." Jessica was sobbing openly now, her face buried in her hands. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what I was doing." "You didn't know what you were doing?" I practically screamed, stepping closer to her. "You were sleeping with my boyfriend. You knew exactly what you were doing. Every time you smiled at me, every time you hugged me, every time you pretended to care about my relationship with Mark, you were lying. How could you betray our friendship like this?" Mark finally stood up, trying to intervene. "Hey, Sarah, yelling isn't going to help anything. Let's just talk calmly." "Calmly?" I spun on him. "You lied to me for 3 months. You had a secret affair with my best friend, and you think we can just talk calmly? What is there to talk about? About how you completely disrespected me and our relationship. About how you chose to do it with the one person on earth who was supposed to be my sister." He flinched at the word sister. Jessica looked up, her face contorted in pain, but it was a pain that felt self-inflicted, not pain for the hurt she had caused me. "We messed up, okay?" Mark said, his voice defensive now. "We made a mistake!" "A mistake?" My voice was shaking with fury. "This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. A deliberate, hurtful choice you made, together. You didn't mess up. You lied. You betrayed. You cheated. Both of you." The argument escalated, words flying between us. Accusations, flimsy excuses, tearful apologies that felt hollow. They tried to justify it, to minimize it, to explain away 3 months of deception with pathetic reasons. But nothing they said could erase the messages I had seen, the lies they had told, the trust they had shattered. I looked at them, standing there in my living room, the 2 people who had been my world, now revealed as strangers. The love for Mark, the deep sisterly bond with Jessica, in that moment, it all turned to ash. "Get out," I said, the words cutting through the chaos, my voice suddenly low and firm. They stopped arguing, looking at me, confused. "Get out of my apartment," I repeated, louder this time, pointing towards the door. "Get out, both of you." Jessica's eyes widened. Mark looked hesitant. "I mean it," I said, walking towards the door, opening it wide. "Get out. I want you both out of my home, out of my life." Jessica started crying harder. "Sarah, please." "No," I said, my voice cold and final. "There's nothing left to say. You made your choices. Now live with them. Get out." Mark put a hand on Jessica's back, guiding her towards the door. They hesitated for a moment on the threshold, looking back at me. Their faces were a mixture of shame, regret, and something that might have been fear. But I felt nothing but a cold, hard emptiness where my love and friendship used to be. They turned and walked out, disappearing down the hallway. The door swung shut behind them, the click echoing in the sudden absolute silence. I stood there, for a moment, the open door a symbol of their exit from my life. Then, my legs gave out, and I sank to the floor, the silence rushing in, overwhelming me. The confrontation was over. They were gone. But the wreckage of my life, the shattered trust and the raw pain of being betrayed by the 2 people I loved most had just begun. The immediate aftermath of kicking them out was a period of intense pain and disorientation. The silence in my apartment was a constant reminder of who was no longer there. But slowly, painstakingly, With the unwavering support of my family and true friends like Emily, the long process of healing began. There were days I felt like I was drowning in sadness and anger, and days where I could almost forget, glimpses of normalcy that offered a fragile hope. Therapy became a crucial tool, helping me unpack the layers of betrayal and rebuild my sense of self, which had been shattered by the double deception. Dealing with the practicalities felt overwhelming at first, but it was a necessary part of moving forward. Boxing up Mark's belongings, deciding what to do with years of shared items, felt like physically dismantling the life we had built. Sorting through gifts from Jessica, reminders of a friendship I cherished, was equally painful. A tangible representation of the broken bond. Eventually, I decided to keep some things that held broader memories, but removed anything specifically tied to our intense friendship or her presence in my home. Reclaiming my apartment, making it feel like my space again, free from the ghosts of their lies, was a slow but vital process. The news spread among mutual friends, as secrets often do. Some were supportive and outraged on my behalf. Others were awkward, unsure how to navigate the fallout. A few, surprisingly, seemed to take sides or tried to minimize what happened, revealing who my true friends were. I chose to be open and honest when asked, stating the facts simply. Mark and Jessica had an affair, I found out, and both relationships were over. I refused to carry the shame of their actions. Months passed. The raw pain began to subside, replaced by a dull ache that would surface less and less often. The memories of the betrayal were still there, but they no longer held the power to cripple me. I rediscovered hobbies I loved, focused on my career, and invested time and energy in the relationships that were built on genuine trust and loyalty. I saw Mark and Jessica once, from across a street downtown. They were walking together, laughing. For a split second, my breath caught, and the old pain threatened to surface. But then I looked at them, really looked, and felt detached. They looked like two strangers, connected by a history I was no longer a part of. The intense emotions I had felt towards them had faded, replaced by a quiet indifference. I didn't react, and they didn't see me. It was a strange, anticlimactic moment, but it showed me how far I had come. The sight of them together no longer shattered me. It merely confirmed that I had left that part of my life behind. The double betrayal was the most painful experience of my life, a brutal lesson in the fragility of trust and the capacity of people to deceive. It forced me to question everything, but it also forced me to find strength I didn't know I possessed. I learned that my worth isn't dependent on being loved or validated by others, but comes from within. I learned the importance of listening to my intuition, even when it's uncomfortable. And I learned that while betrayal can break you, it doesn't have to define you. Today, I am building a life that is authentic and strong. I have a support system I trust implicitly. I am independent and confident in who I am. The space that Mark and Jessica once occupied in my life is now filled with self-respect, peace, and the promise of genuine connections yet to come. The woman who discovered that devastating secret is not the same woman today. I am stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever the future holds, having survived the ultimate betrayal and emerged against all odds, whole again.